Port Rashid, Dubai. Just past 6 in the evening on a humid Monday, a ferry manifest lists a single teenage passenger by the name Maria Kovalenko boarding for Kasab. On that same hour, a WhatsApp backup log shows one device tied to her account syncing from a public Wi-Fi node at Dubai Marina Mall. Two systems agree she moved and stayed at once. Two clocks tick in step and point in opposite directions. If the exit list says she left by sea, why did her phone keep breathing from a tower by the marina? And who turned a promised marriage into a price measured in blood? Before we dive in, subscribe if you value careful, original investigations. Helena Kovalenko lives in a narrow walk-up above a discount market in Gdansk. She is in her mid-40s, a single mother who cleans offices at dawn and launders uniforms at night. Her one edge is order. She labels envelopes by month, keeps receipts in clear sleeves, and writes every transfer by hand in a cheap notebook. Her one weakness is fear of time. Rent rises. School fees rise. The day has only so many hours, and her daughter, Maria, is growing into a life that does not fit a cramped flat and 2 jobs. Hope moves along fiber lines now. It arrives as reels of golden towers and aquariums and brunches by glass walls. It says future husband in simple phrases and warmer colors than a Polish winter can afford. The contact is named Samira on Instagram and S. Haddad in WhatsApp. The profile is a curated mask. Soft focus family photos, a certificate from a bridal mentorship academy, a logo for a hospitality company registered in Dubai, an office address that maps to a floor in Jumeirah Lakes Towers, an office address that she speaks the language of safety, guardianship, sponsorship, legal pathways, health checks, family supervision. She calls the payment a pledge, and the clinic visit a blessing, where the bride offers blood for the good of elders and the poor. The phrase lands inside Helena as something dignified, not dangerous. She has given blood before at a mobile van behind the stadium. It felt like a service, not a risk. The invitation is framed as a structured path. First, a tourist entry and a chaperoned stay with a family friend in Al Barsha. Second, a meeting with the groom's family in a private room at a marina restaurant. Third, a clinic visit for routine tests and a formal donation. Fourth, a visa reset via a day trip to Oman by ferry while paperwork is processed. The documents arrive in sequence. There is an itinerary PDF with a 6-character airline booking code, a copy of a hotel reservation at a service department, and a letter of social sponsorship on a template with a faint watermark. Helena prints each page and slides it into a sleeve. Order makes fear small enough to hold. Behind the mask, small rough edges show and get smoothed. The hotel link opens to a different property than the letter states. Samira says the group block moved. The Academy certificate uses a font that came with free presentation software. Samira says design is not her strong suit. The hospitality company's trade license image is cropped at the stamp. Samira says the full file is on a backup drive she cannot reach while traveling. Helena is used to improvisation. In her world, forms misprint names and buses skip stops. Her world, a thing can be real and still look imperfect. The story keeps its shape. Maria is 16, impatient, bright with screens, and hungry for a sky larger than the one above the tram yard. She trains in photography at a public youth center and knows how to find free light. Her phone holds a gallery of frames of rain on bus windows, of stray cats by a bakery door, of her own face half in shadow. She reads the messaging threads and sees a future that seems solvable by steps. She believes in a meeting under supervision, in chaperones and meals in public places, in blood given under nurse eyes. She believes in the machine of modern cities where cameras record, badges log, taxis ping, where cameras record. Helena sells a gold pendant and moves money from an envelope marked winter coats. The transfer is modest by the standards of the towers on the screen and heavy by the standards of a cleaner's week. She fills out an online form for a UAE entry permit with help from a man in an electronics shop who charges a small fee. An airline ticket is issued from Warsaw to Dubai with a night arrival. The PDF looks solid. The booking code is real. The hotel reservation reflects a 3-night stay with breakfast. The WhatsApp chat from Samira ends with a share of a calendar invite for the clinic visit in Al Quoz, late afternoon on day 2. Helena prints the calendar preview and adds it to the sleeves. At Chopin Airport, Helena hands her daughter's passport to a check-in agent and watches the tag loop around the handle of a borrowed suitcase. An agent. She stands at the glass as the jetway swallows a line of travelers. Her order meets a bigger order, the airline PNR, the border e-gate, the migration stamp. She returns to Gdansk before dawn on a night bus, sits at the kitchen table and arranges the sleeves again. The commitment is now real and cannot be called back. A child is in the air because a mother said yes to a path that promised safety, status, and speed. She sets an alarm to wake for the arrival time and leaves the phone on the table beside the sleeves. A boarding pass is scanned in Warsaw, and miles away a binder closes in Gdansk. A line has been crossed, and the next step will not reverse. The arrival looks clean on the logs. Next step will not reverse. The airline, PNR, shows a status flip from open to flown. The Dubai border e-gate history registers a teen traveler with Ukrainian nationality admitted near midnight under a short-stay permit. A ride-hailing receipt shows a trip from Terminal 3 to a serviced apartment cluster near the metro line. The system senses a person and moves money around her. In the morning, a WhatsApp location share bubble blinks for a minute near a grocery, then disappears. Quiet hints collect like dust in corners. The hotel name on the reservation does not match the name on the ride receipt. Samira texts that the family friend decided to host the girl to save Helena extra costs. The clinic name on the calendar invite differs by one word from the clinic name on the sponsorship letter. Calendar invite differs. Samira replies that the group uses sister facilities, same chain. The groom's family account stays abstract. It is always they for now, with specifics promised after the health blessing. The first expense is billed in a different way than promised. Instead of a card charge at the hotel desk, a cash pickup is arranged in the lobby by a man who calls himself Musa and flashes a visitor sticker with a serial near the bottom edge. The sticker looks normal, and the hotel staff does not object. The amount is small, presented as a courier fee. Maria sends a quick note with a heart and a photo of a bottled water by a window. The sky looks pale over a line of low roofs. Helena saves the photo to a new folder named Dubai. The clinic day is busy. The location moves from Al Quoz to Al Jadaf, then back to Al Quoz, then finally to a lane behind a tile warehouse where a private ambulance sits angled to the curb. The door sign lists a license, an entity name, and a phone number. The waiting room holds plastic plants and a flat screen with a list of donors. A receptionist hands out a form that asks for nothing unusual: name, passport number, allergies, weight. A fee is paid via a QR code to a payment gateway that routes through a hospitality company account. The paper receipt shows a service code labeled Community Support. Maria messages a photo of the waiting room plant. The pot is cracked. The streaks on the glass look like salt lines. Samira frames the donation as symbolic. 1 unit for blessings, she writes. The word unit lands gently and slides past Helena without friction. Blood draws are a normal thing across Europe. Helena's mind fills the form with clinics she recognizes from her own city. The memory of a mobile van and a biscuit after a draw returns as proof that everything normal sits next to everything global. Returns as proof that she does not see another layer because the layer is not meant to be seen. In the evening, a calendar invite arrives for an early morning visa run to Oman by ferry. The itinerary lists a meeting point at Port Rashid and a return by late afternoon. Samira writes that this step gives the system time to process the long-stay paperwork. She also writes that the groom's family cannot meet before the visa reset to avoid any perception of impropriety with a minor on a tourist entry. The words sound like protocol, not delay. The mask stays on. Through the night, more red flags blink and get rationalized. A hotel key card stops working and is replaced by a short-term code to a different building where a studio has a couch made of vinyl and a view of a service alley. A visitor sticker with a new cereal appears on Mariah's hoodie in a mirror photo. The WhatsApp profile image for Samira changes to a logo for the hospitality company. A pinned message in the group chat is edited to remove the clinic address. Helena screenshots each change and labels it with the time by hand in her notebook. Order is her shield, so she makes more of it. Morning comes and the port waits. The ferry ticket lists a seat in a boarding window that ends before noon. The manifest is printed, and names are checked against passports in a line that moves past turnstiles that click. The plan says out and back in 1 day, just long enough to step over a line that resets a counter. Maria sends a sun-washed photo of a wall with a painted arrow and the word departures. Under the arrow is a small sign for a clinic partner across the street. The step into the port is the kind of step that changes what return means. Step into the port. It is not a chat invite or a rescheduled car. It is an exit recorded by a state. The act closes on its own like a glass door behind a traveler. Past that door, choices narrow. The contradiction lands first in the data. In an export from the WhatsApp backup, one device tied to Maria's account syncs at just after 6 in the evening from an access point named after the Dubai Marina Mall. The log shows a successful backup, a file size, and a cloud path. In the same hour, the ferry manifest for Port Rashid lists her name as boarded and cleared for exit to Kasab. 2 witnesses that do not lie face each other and disagree. The port says she left. The network says her phone stayed. The next witness is a camera. The network, a CCTV frame, with a time code from a service department corridor in Al Barsha. The same evening, shows a slim figure in a hoodie with a visitor sticker entering a unit that matches the replacement code given after the keycard failure. The face is in motion blur. The sticker serial is readable if enlarged. It is not the same serial as the one photographed on the hoodie the day before. The time code sits inside the ferry window. A body cannot be on the sea and in a hallway at once. A person can hold 2 devices. A phone can be carried by another. A name can sit on paper when a body sits on vinyl. The room grows smaller as each new normal turns strange. Helena cannot reconcile the 2 timelines by feeling, so she moves into documents. She requests an airline movement printout from the carrier's help desk and receives a clean sheet showing arrival only, no onward flight. Leaves a clean sheet showing she asks a port staffer, via a translator in a group chat, whether the ferry does biometric checks. The answer is polite and vague. Lists are often manual. She calls the hotel and asks for a keycard activity history for the first property. The desk sends a brief summary. 1 key issued, 1 replacement, 1 access at late night on day 1. No further entries after the room code switch. She prints the sheet and slides it beside the WhatsApp log and the manifest. Then the 4th witness speaks. A clinic cash ledger obtained later during a review by a health authority shows a group entry for community support on the same day as the visa run, paid in cash, matching the hospitality company's payment gateway. Trace, matching the ledger shows more than 1 unit of blood drawn across multiple names tied to the network that week, flagged later by an auditor with a thin pencil line. The ledger does not say who used that blood or why the donation volume formed a pattern, only that the pattern exists. A path emerges that leads not to a groom's table, but to a market of liquids and a network that turns symbols into inventory. The human mechanism appears by degrees. On the morning of the ferry, a staffer takes Mariah's passport for processing and gives a visitor sticker in exchange. On paper, a passport can move without a body inside a small ring of influence. At a port where manual lists echo names out loud, a proxy can hold a document while a head nods. At a clinic across the street, a teenager can sit under cool air and roll up a sleeve. The mask of ritual covers a simple ledger reality. The mask of pledge becomes stock. The old word bride price turns literal and cold. Leverage locks in. Without a passport in her hand, Maria cannot exit a building without risk. Without cash on her person, she cannot pay for a ride or a room. Without a working SIM in her own name, she cannot sustain a call without a borrowed phone that can be taken back. The network speaks through rules, not threats written down. A minor on a tourist entry is not able to file a complaint without an adult in the room. A mother in Poland is not able to speak to a port officer across a time zone without a reference number that sits on a counter in a city she has never seen. A final proof of control comes in the account access. The email tied to Maria's cloud storage triggers a security alert for a new device located near the marina. The login is short and then closes near the marina. The device name matches the hospitality company's front desk tablet. In that moment, the line between chaperone and jailer dissolves. The phone is not only a thing that calls home. It is a token that yields value in the form of logins, contacts, and a backup that proves presence near a tower, while a ferry list proves exit near a port. Both are useful to a network that wants movement on paper and stillness in a room. That evening, Helena receives a silent video clip in the family chat. A window, a slice of sky, the corner of a vinyl couch. No face, no sound. The clip lasts only some seconds. It could be a pocket recording or a signal. It could be an accident or a test. She saves it and writes the time by hand. Then she opens a new sleeve and labels it Contradictions. She knows the scale has tipped. This is no longer a story about a meeting and a pledge. It has tipped. It is a story about a mechanism that controls movement, law, money, and data, and uses paper exits to hide flesh presence. Past midnight in Gdansk, she stops calling numbers that do not ring and begins to plan like an operator, not a target. The room in Dubai does not grow larger, but the map in her mind does. A constraint has snapped into place. Someone else holds the passport, the device, and the calendar. The threshold is crossed, and there is no way to pretend the world kept its promise. In the quiet after the clip, she closes the binder and sets her alarm for dawn. The next move will not be a message but a record, a name, a unit to call. The mask has slipped, and the machine beneath it has a shape she can now trace. Morning light in Gdansk is gray and thin when Halina stops thinking like a guest and starts thinking like a clerk who audits other people's work. She builds a packet. At the top, the airline movement printout that confirms arrival only. Beneath it, screenshots of the WhatsApp backup that synced near the marina in the same hour the ferry manifest claims exit. Then, the hotel keycard summary with its short chain of access and the cropped image of a visitor sticker with a readable serial. She adds the clinic receipt that called the draw community support. She writes the times by hand in a neat line, each with a short note. She is not trying to feel right. She is trying to be legible to strangers who can act. Her first calls land in soft places. An email to the address on the consulate page returns an auto-reply with office hours. A helpline form for exploited workers accepts her upload and gives a case token. The airline confirms there is no onward flight under her daughter's name. A duty officer on a general line explains that missing foreign minors inside a private flat require local police. Each reply is correct and not useful fast. Jurisdiction is a wall built from polite rules. So she adds tools that do not need permission. She uses her daughter's cloud account to pull a device activity log and captures the name of a new tablet that logged in near the marina. She triggers a Find My Device sound and records the map dot when it pings back for a breath, then dies. She orders a grocery delivery to the Al Barsha unit that appears in the corridor camera frame. Not to feed, but to create a third-party entry in a courier system that will hold a time, a driver ID, and a photo of a door. She requests a building access confirmation by pretending to have left behind a small scarf. If the desk replies with a code, it proves who controls the lock. In Dubai, the machine works without speech. Space is controlled by doors that switch from keycards to codes to lockboxes. Time is controlled by schedule changes that always move the teen and never the handler. Money is controlled by cash pickups, tagged as courier fees, and QR payments routed through a hospitality merchant ID. Law is controlled by the fact of a minor on a short-stay entry, whose voice does not open a station counter without a guardian present. Data is controlled by a tablet at a front desk that can touch a cloud and confirm a presence near a mall while a passport walks through a port. Helena maps the people behind the mask. Samira is a recruiter who plays the role of cultural aunt, credible because of tone and templates. Musa is a runner who wears the building visitor sticker and moves small cash and paper through lobbies. The clinic is a node that launders the word donation into stock. The private ambulance is a movable room with rubber floor and drains that does not raise a hotel manager's attention. The hospitality company is a shell with a trade license and a bank account that dresses money in a normal outfit. There is likely a sponsor name on the license that matters more than the brand on the logo. She does not guess at the groom anymore. The brand on the logo. She assumes he was always a shadow used to carry promise. The real product is not a marriage. It is compliance measured in blood and silence. The ferry run is not a visa tip. It is a way to create an exit on paper, while a body sits still in a studio where vinyl sticks to skin. The old phrase bride price has been stripped of ceremony and turned into ledgers and codes. The first hard edge appears when she manages to reach a human at the consulate through an out-of-hours line for welfare cases. The person cannot rate a flat and cannot demand a check from a private clinic. But the person can open a file and push a notice to Dubai police and to the health authority with the packet attached. The file receives a case number. Now, there is a hook inside the system with her daughter's name at the end of it. The health authority replies the next day with a request for the clinic name and the service code on the receipt. Helena sends a clear photo of the paper where community support sits in small print. A regulator on the other side can now search for that code across ledgers. A pattern of draws linked to one merchant ID can be flagged without needing a story. Numbers are the only language that machines obey. She needs one more piece. Movement tied to names. She reaches a cybercrime desk in Poland and files an online report of account access without consent. The desk forwards the device log to a liaison in the Gulf who can speak to CID. It is not drama. It is format and chain. A government inbox opens more often to another government inbox than to a mother's panic. Her packet is now not just paper in a kitchen. It is a case inside a network. Samira keeps the chat warm with new calendar invites. A message arrives about an incomplete panel at the clinic and a plan for a second draw under a partner facility near the port. Helena responds by saving the invite, not by answering on feeling. She understands the pattern now. Move the girl, move the paper, repeat. A second clinic trip is not only risk, it is also a schedule that can be used to meet. She writes a simple plan on a notepad. The plan has 3 parts. First, confirm the clinic appointment as the network proposes, so a time and place is fixed. Second, get a local unit to stand near that time and place with lawful reason to ask for permits and ledgers. Third, create a route out that does not require her daughter to argue in a room full of people who earn money from her silence. All of it hinges on the next appointment being real. All of it hinges on not tipping the mask and being real. She sets the packet by the door and waits for a reply from the unit she has touched. When the case number turns into a visit and a visit turns into a plan, she will move. Until then, she keeps making records. The choice is made. She has flipped from target to operator. The clock is not hers yet, but the file is. That evening, the consulate sends a short note. A liaison with CID and a health inspector will assess the listed clinic on the stated day. It is not a promise of rescue. It is a checkpoint. She closes her eyes and breathes once. The next step will be taken in the city that holds her child. A plan exists now with a time, a place, and a file number. The next action belongs to people who can step through a door and ask for names. The check begins in quiet ways. Ask for names. A health authority inspector calls the clinic listed on the receipt and confirms that a follow-up blessing is booked for the late afternoon near the port. The inspector also checks the entity license category and notes a past warning about donor screening records. A CID officer pulls the hospitality company's trade license and sees the sponsor name and the merchant ID for the payment gateway tied to community support. A border police officer flags the ferry manifest pattern for the week of the hotel keycard. Failure, and sees the same surname marked as exited while a device from the same account logs in near the marina. Separate desks, separate screens, one map. Helena's packet grows teeth when timestamps align. Evidence Piece 1. The WhatsApp backup sync from the mall access point. Recorded to the minute. Evidence Piece 2. The port manifest line where the teen's name is checked by hand for the CASAB run in the same hour. Evidence Piece 3. The corridor CCTV frame with time code, the hoodie, and the visitor sticker serial that differs from the one logged the day before. Evidence Piece 4. the clinic ledger entry that shows a cash intake under community support that matches the day of the ferry window and routes through the hospitality merchant ID. It's the day of the ferry window. Evidence, piece 5. A vehicle GPS ping from the private ambulance plate as it idles behind the tile warehouse lane during 2 donation windows that week. Each piece touches a person. The receptionist who printed the receipt, the runner who wore the sticker, the sponsor who holds the license, the man who sat in the ambulance with the engine running. It is not a story now. It is a chain. The plan is simple by design. The clinic expects a girl and a chaperone to arrive with a visitor sticker, a passport held for processing, and a QR code payment for a small fee. The health inspector will arrive as a routine audit at the same hour, asking to see donor consent forms and proof of age, and the ledger for community support. The CID officer will be close, lawful reason in hand to ask about the hospitality. Close. Merchant ID and the person named as sponsor on the trade license. Border police will stand ready to walk to the ferry desk if a passport under the girl's name appears for exit without the body. If the network tries to move her after the clinic, the plan routes her into a consulate car instead of back to a studio with a lockbox. The extraction path is a line with short legs. Clinic corridor to car, car to a side door at a government office, office to airport with a printed letter that names welfare risk and instructs an airline desk to issue a return under supervision. A photo taken at each threshold will stand as proof later when someone says nothing happened. Threshold will stand. Helena will not see any of it. She will sit with the binder near an open window and stare at the spine. The work belongs to the people on the ground. To reduce the chance of panic inside the clinic, the liaison sets a small touchstone in the family chat. A neutral phrase is agreed upon days earlier as the only alert Maria should send if she is allowed to touch a phone in a hallway. No sound, no plea, just a phrase that looks like routine and means the team should step in. In case the phone is not in her hand, another marker is set. A red elastic on her wrist that a plainclothes officer can look for against the gray of a hoodie sleeve. Small details that fit inside ordinary light. At the appointed hour, the clinic door opens and closes in the usual rhythm. The receptionist calls names from a list. A runner leans on a wall and checks a visitor sticker that matches the series in the corridor frame. The private ambulance idles at the same angle as before with the plate flagged by the GPS ping. The inspector arrives with a clipboard and a calm face and asks to see consent forms for a minor. The receptionist hesitates and reaches for a file. The forms are incomplete. The ledger is missing a signature. The inspector asks to see the donor and the guardian. The runner moves to the corridor to fetch the girl. Down the hall, a slim teen sits on a vinyl couch, wrist turned up, a red elastic dull against pale skin. The phone on the small table beside her is not hers. A tablet sits face down with a hospitality logo on the back. A tablet. The code phrase arrives in the family chat. 2 words, plain. Helena sees it pop up against the kitchen light and does not breathe. In the clinic, the inspector looks once at the band, once at the date of birth on the form, and asks the CID officer to step forward. What follows is not a raid, it is a sequence. The officer asks for the passport. The runner says it is with processing. The officer asks for the person holding it. The receptionist points to the front desk at the service department that issued the tablet login earlier in the week. A second officer walks to a car to fetch a letter with an agency crest that cites welfare risk and the need to secure a minor. The girl stands. The red band does not move. The girl. At the same time, A border officer at the ferry desk checks the list for that day and sees the same surname pre-printed for exit. He asks the clerk to hold any passport with that name and to call him before releasing it to a courier. The clerk nods. A minute later, Musa walks in with a slim folder and a visitor sticker fresh on his chest. He does not know that the plate on the ambulance behind the clinic has already been photographed and the ledger code flagged. The clock runs for less than the length of a song. A passport changes hands in a corridor, this time into a lawful palm. A runner steps back from a doorway and raises both hands to prove he is empty. A receptionist unlocks a drawer that holds a petty cash book and a stack of receipts printed with the hospitality merchant ID. The inspector collects them. The officer notes a name that matches the sponsor on the trade license. The officer notes the private ambulance backs away and tries to turn left toward the feeder road. A patrol car blocks the lane for a moment, long enough to photograph the driver's face. The door to the clinic opens again, and a teen with a red band on her wrist walks out with two adults who move like staff but wear badges inside their jackets. The sunlight is the same as any other late afternoon near the port. Nothing in the air marks a break. The only sign that a plan is running is the way the car, waiting at the curb, does not idle. It turns on and leaves. In Gdansk, the binder sits open on a table beside a cold cup of tea. The phone lights again. A message arrives from a consulate account with a single line. No drama, no flourish. A checkpoint cleared. The operation that began with a mismatched manifest and a mall access point is now moving under its own weight. The code word has been spent. Under its own weight. The car has turned. The clock continues, now on the side that keeps records. The first outcome is simple and heavy. At an office with frosted glass in Dubai, a miner gives a statement in the presence of two officials and a consular staffer. The statement is brief. It lists places, people, and steps. It says when a passport left her hand and to whom. It says how many times a needle touched skin and what word the receptionist used to label the fee. It names Samira as the person who arranged the trip and Musa as the man who collected cash and badges. It names the clinic as the room where the vinyl couch, the cracked plant pot, and the flat screen with donor names stood like props in a quiet play. It names the hospitality company as the brand on the QR code that took the money. The second outcome is administrative and loud in the parts that matter. The health authority suspends the clinic's license pending a deeper audit. The code, community support, is frozen across all entities tied to the same merchant ID until proof appears that donors were of age, consent was real, and units were tracked to lawful use. The sponsor named on the trade license is called in for questions about supervision and staff practices. The private ambulance is impounded for inspection. None of this looks like rescue on a screen. It looks like forms and stamps and seals moving through a chain faster than they usually do. The third outcome is human and quiet. A passport sits on a desk. Human. A letter printed on consular letterhead names a welfare risk and requests airline discretion to reissue a return under supervision. At the airport, a staffer checks the case number against a system field, and the system allows the boarding pass. A short walk through security, a seat by a window, a night flight out. Helena stands at a rail at Chopin Airport and watches the same jetway that swallowed her daughter now spit her back out. The vinyl smell is gone. The red elastic is cut and dropped in a bin on the way to the tram. The central question can be answered now without poetry. The ferry manifest did not lie. A passport with the teen's name did present for exit. The WhatsApp backup did not lie. A device tied to her account did sink near the marina at the same hour. The mechanism was a mask built from paper and borrowed hardware. A runner carried a passport to a port while a tablet logged into her cloud to create presence near a mall. Meanwhile, the teen was held in a private flat and moved to a clinic, where blood drawn was recorded as community support and billed through a hospitality merchant ID. The future husband was a cover story to gather consent and distance, not a person waiting with a ring. The bride price was literal and ugly. It was measured in units and receipts. There are detentions, but not a headline of a ring smashed. Musa is held for questioning and charged with document misuse and unlawful handling of a minor's travel papers. The clinic manager is detained on suspicion of irregular donor practices and false ledger entries. The hospitality company account is frozen and flagged for further review by the Financial Intelligence Unit. Samira does not arrive for her interview. Her number goes dark. The profile that once called itself an Academy mentor disappears for a time, and later reappears under a new handle that uses the same logo with a tweaked font. The sponsor behind the trade license hires counsel and claims ignorance. Partial disruption is the real name of this end. In the weeks that follow, small policy changes harden edges. The port adds a biometric turnstile to its manual ferry desk, so that a face must match a passport at exit, even on sea routes favored for short resets. The health authority modifies the code list and bans the phrase community support without a traceable banked use case. Then publishes a bulletin that all donor consent for minors requires a guardian verified by biometric ID. The payment gateway revises its merchant onboarding and closes the hospitality company account tied to the flagged code. None of this is fast enough to feel like justice. All of it makes the next run costlier. Helena's life does not return to what it was. She keeps the binder but adds a final sleeve that holds a copy of the case number, a short letter of thanks from a liaison, and a printed list of cross-border helplines with working hours. At church, at the laundry, at the youth center where her daughter returns to photography, she tells a plain version of the story that fits into a bus ride. She says to never hand a passport to anyone who cannot be named on a license. She says to be careful when a ritual asks for a vein and a fee in cash. She says to watch serials on stickers and the names on receipts. Maria walks with a camera again. She frames puddles and cat eyes and doors. The vinyl couch is not a picture she wants to make. The red band is gone. She lets the sun flare in her lens on purpose sometimes, like a small bright error that says a thing survived. On a warm evening in Dubai, months later, the lane behind the tile warehouse sits empty. The private ambulance space is an oblong of darker pavement. The clinic door is locked behind a paper that says, "Suspended," in calm type. At Port Rashid, the ferry counter has a new glass turnstile. A clerk rests a hand on a stamp and looks at a screen before looking up. The queue is short. The sea is flat, up. A gull tracks the rim of the basin and then settles on a light pole, still as a knot. The city swallows the sound. Somewhere online, a clean logo lands on a new page and gathers bright photos around it. The phone number is different. The rhythm is the same. The binder on a kitchen table in Gdansk waits in a cupboard, ready to be opened again if called upon. A quiet ledger of what happens when a mask meets a file, and the file holds.